So we are going to use Pear Deck. There's a couple of places where you are going to be able to interact and respond. That's why I like Pear Deck. I used Nearpod. It was a similar tool, very similar actually, when I was in the classroom. And the reason I liked it is because my students did not know when they were going to have to answer a question. So I actually saw that they paid attention much better, because like when we were doing some kind of like presentation, direct instruction type thing, because they knew that at any point, the next slide I took them to might have a question or an activity or something they were going to have to do based on what we had just covered. So it tended to help engagement a good bit. So Pear Deck and Nearpod are very similar. Both have free versions and premium versions. Honestly, both of them, the free version is good enough. Otherwise, we would not be using it ourselves today. And only one of you is in my Pear Deck. So there's only 2 of you in here. Jason, can you join at least to appease me, and maybe so that I don't think there's just one person in here?
We're going to participate. So go to joinpd.com and type in the code. We will
Jason's
not.
a little more forceful than I am.
Yes. Who's struggling with this?
I've never done it before.
All right. So go to join. You're going to participate as a student. Go open up a new tab and type in joinpd.com in the address bar, and then it'll ask you for the code, and then you just type in the code that you see there. Vicious jacks neatly conduct underwhelmed kangaroos, otherwise known as VJNCUK. It's fun.
And once you're there, you're actually going to stay on that tab, and you're just going to listen kind of in the background. So you'll have the meet on another tab, but you are going to be watching the Pear Deck. Jason, if I start this, they'll still see the code, right? Or no?
Yeah, it'll be in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay, cool. So I am going to start it just to get the housekeeping stuff out of the way. And then if you're still trying to get there, you'll go to joinpd.com, and then the code is up here in the top right. So we'll give you this presentation at the end of today. We'll put the link in the chat so that you have it. You will need to save it for your artifact. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to give you a couple tips and tricks for making better discussions in Canvas. So,
Stephanie, if you could mute yourself, again, a little bit of feedback there, that would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, maybe it's because I'm talking. So I tend to talk louder when I'm doing virtual PD. I'll try not to yell through the computer at you guys. So these are just suggestions to make your Canvas discussions a little bit better, because in Canvas, you can certainly just ask one question. You can just type a text question and then have students respond. But there's a lot of things, easy things that you can do that will allow you to have better online discussions, which will just build better connections between the students and between you and the students. So this one is using prompts and stems. So what I mean by that, if you are following along, then you can see 2 documents here. When you get the presentation, these images are linked to the full document so that you can have all of these sentence stems. So when you do a Canvas discussion, first of all, have y'all used Canvas discussions, or do I need to kind of do a quick little overview of like how to set them up?
Also, guys, go ahead and click on each of those pictures, and it's going to open those question stems are going to open up for you in a new tab, and that's for you to have and keep. You know, we're givers here at Technology Land, you know, and we want you to have those cool little digital nuggets of awesomeness. So if you click on those, it'll open up into new tabs. You can save them, and you'll have these sentence stems that can help you in making your discussions better. And Catherine asked, have you guys, Stephanie, have you used discussions in your online course?
I have in the Canvas discussion, but I found it's really difficult for me to manage. I mean, the kids I have to bow beat them to get them to respond.
We got a couple tricks
have-
that.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead,
Don't
Catherine.
give away my secrets, Jason.
I didn't. I said we've got some tricks.
Okay.
And Lee, how about you, buddy?
I have yet to use the discussion because I don't feel confident with it. I'd like to see it another time or two. I think you did it in a previous example. However, I like repetition quite a bit.
Sure. So how about this? Let me, just to make it easier for you guys so you're not switching between a bunch of tabs back and forth. Jason, will you make sure, will you watch the time, make sure I leave time to go into Canvas and actually pull up the discussions and look at some of that?
Yes. Oh, how much time do you want? You have 50 more minutes.
10, 50, give me a 15-minute warning when I only have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Please. And how to require students to do the discussion, because there is a way that you can do that. But one suggestion is when you give a discussion is to encourage students to reply. So in your directions, in your text editing box, to ask the students the general prompt, but then underneath that, to ask students to reply to others. So that's where it actually becomes a discussion. And that is going to take some time to kind of build that expectation, just like in the classroom. If you, on the third day of school, try and have an in-class discussion, not every kid is going to talk and not every kid is going to reply to each other. So you are going to have to kind of train them how to do this. But what I like about discussions is they are fairly simple to set up in Canvas. And so that just makes it easy to use more frequently to kind of build those expectations. So one of the things that I would say is if you ask students to reply to each other, if you just tell them reply to at least 2 classmates, chances are their response is going to be, I agree, or good point, or I like what you said. And it's not going to actually add any meaning to the discussion. So what you may want to consider doing is if you ask students to reply to each other, ask them to choose from a list of sentence stems. So give them a couple sentence stems from this list and tell them that their reply to other students have to start with one of those options. And to go even further with that, what I like to do is I like to always include at least one agree and one disagree type. Because part of having a discussion is you're allowed to disagree with other people. You just have to make sure you do it appropriately. And by giving students these sentence stems, they're going to learn an appropriate way to disagree. So like one of my favorites of disagreeing is I can see that blank, because it's helping the student acknowledge their peer and what their peer's opinion or what their peer's answer is. So I acknowledge what you're saying. However, I disagree with whatever. So by providing them a couple options and telling them your replies should start with one of these options, you're providing the foundation for a better response that's going to lead to more discussion and an actual like string of replies as they get more comfortable with this. Again, you're going to have to kind of push them towards this. But the more you use it and the more frequently you use it, the more used to it they're going to be, and it's going to be easier to continue those discussions. What you can also do too is if you are school-based, so if you are on A Day, B Day, and you see some of your students in person sometimes, then you can work through this activity with them in class. So you can do a Canvas discussion in class and you can lead them through and talk them through what your expectations are. If you're fully virtual, then you could do this while you do one of your live sessions on Google Meet or whatever platform you're doing. So you can actually say like, okay, you know, at this point, let's all go into Canvas, and it might be quiet in the Meet, but let's practice going through this discussion together. And so you can still kind of lead them through it live. So choosing some of those sentence stems are really good. This is probably my favorite idea. I actually have this graphic printed by my desk, and anytime I create a discussion in Canvas, I pull this out and I look at the Bloom's verbs and I decide what verb am I going to use to start asking that main discussion prompt. So what do I want students to do? How deep of a discussion do I want? Am I just asking them to just really quickly respond to a 2-minute video? If so, maybe I just want them to summarize. I'm going to go low-level Blooms, just summarize what you learned. Or are we are we doing a discussion based on several things that we've done today? Do I want you to go higher in Blooms? Do I want you to prioritize from a list of topics, or prioritize and explain why you chose the order that you did? So where on Blooms do I want you to be? And I like to fluctuate kind of through this. So in some discussions, we are down on knowledge or understanding. And in some discussions, we are up on analyze, evaluate, create. So they're never constantly doing high level Blooms. They're able to kind of have little brain breaks, but yet still respond. And it helps me generate better prompts and get a little more creative. So what I want you to do is on your screen right now, you should see this slide and a text box. And I'm going to ask you to kind of stretch and challenge yourself right now, because I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. But I would love if you choose one of these verbs and just create a sample discussion prompt that you might give to your class, that you might ask them to answer. And then later on, I'll show you how we can take those and actually put them into Canvas. So for now, just kind of pick one. And pick your favorite topic. It can be a topic that you're teaching right now, or it can be a topic that you don't teach until December. But I want you to pick a verb and generate a discussion question that you may post for your students. And I can see I have one response. So I am going to wait until I have at least two.
Where do we put these?
So if you are you on the Pear Deck tab, where you should see it like a text box? Jason, is on the right or the left?
Oh, okay, I see it.
Okay. I think I'm remembering what it looks like from the student view. It usually kind of puts the slide on there with like an area for text. So in Pear Deck, I can see responses. Oh, I like this one, rewrite the definition. So then you actually, as a teacher, you can kind of scan through the discussion responses and you can see, do they really know what this definition is? Do they really understand this term? And that's one that, that's an easier one that you could sprinkle throughout a module or throughout a unit. And, you know, every couple of activities that you're asking students to do, throw in that discussion, rewrite this term, so that throughout a unit, you're circling back to those vocabulary words that you introduced at the beginning. And they're constantly seeing and revisiting those terms.
So, Catherine, are you saying that we should use this Pear Deck in lieu of the discussion?
No. I'm just using it to make this PD a little bit more interactive.
But could we? I mean, couldn't we? Or is it costly?
There's a free version. You could. You certainly could. I think Pear Deck is best in face-to-face situations, but as you see right now, you can still use it virtually.
Stephanie, you're GVA, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're doing live instruction every day, right?
Right.
I would absolutely use Pear Deck. Right? It's going to give you, your students are going to be, you know, rather than just staring at you and the screen, you know, there is, you get them in Pear Deck, your same presentation you're going to do. It takes seconds. You can add questions and interactivity to your presentation. It just makes a lot of sense.
So
But
I've not
completely,
used, go ahead.
I was just going to say this is completely separate from discussions. So all Catherine's doing is she's teaching you about, the things that you could enhance your discussions using, a slide deck that she created in Google Slides, but she's making that slide deck more interactive by putting it in Pear Deck. It's like layers, like an onion or a parfait or whatever,
Okay, thank you.
Oops, sorry. Let me go back. So prioritize the items, contrast the character in the play and the movie. Oh, I like that one. That one's good. And then rewrite the definition. Yeah. So I don't know I don't know if you saw that it helped you generate a prompt. It definitely helps me just to have a starting place, just to have a word that kind of kicks it off for me. So like I said, I have this image printed by my desk, and I just refer to it every time I'm making a discussion question in Canvas. So the second tip is formatting in visuals, and this is kind of one that gets you a lot of bang for your buck. So it's pretty simple, but it can really enhance your discussions and give your students some more guidance when they are doing the discussions. So again, in Canvas, when you are editing, no matter if you are on a discussion, a page, an assignment, your text editing box, your rich content editor looks the same. So you have these items in your toolbar, plus some others, but we're going to focus on these. And what I've done is I've kind of pointed out some of the different options and what I like to use them for in discussions. Now, this by no means is me telling you this is what you should do. This is just what I have found works for me. So when I go to create a brand new discussion and I go into edit and I start typing my discussion question, I will highlight the prompt. So the prompt like that you just generated, you just came up with from your Bloom's verb. I would highlight that prompt and I would change the text formatting to like a header 2. And I'm going to show you that when I go into the actual Canvas discussions in a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's just going to make your text stand out. It's going to make it a little bit larger. So students' eyes are drawn to that question that I'm asking them, because that's the main purpose of this discussion is me asking them a question, me giving them a prompt and wanting them to respond to that. So it's drawing their attention to kind of the meat of the discussion. What I also like to do is I like to use bold for vocabulary words or action words. So when I type my directions, when I give my prompt, if I give any extra suggestions or hints or information in that text box, in any place where I use a vocabulary word from my unit or my curriculum, or if I use an action word, so like the Bloom's verb, rewrite, I take that word and I bold it, because again, it helps that word stand out for students. What I also do is, if it's a vocabulary word, is I do this not only for discussions, but I do it anywhere in Canvas where I am editing some text and I choose to use a content vocabulary word. I bold it so that everywhere in my course, if there's a vocabulary word from my curriculum, it's bolded. And again, students' eyes are drawn to it. So they're constantly seeing that vocabulary word and it's being kind of put more in front of their face so that they hopefully become more and more familiar with it. Any directions that I give, which I would always do directions on the discussion, I would put those at the top. Even if the directions are read the prompt below and respond with your answer, then reply to at least 2 others. Simple directions, but still I put those at the top. And what I like to do is I like to italicize those and change them into a red text color using this option here. The A with the little colored bar under it, which by default is a black bar because black text, but you can use the drop-down menu to change the color. So that's what I like to do for directions. Again, just like vocabulary words, I use that same formatting throughout my Canvas course, not just discussions. if I include a hint, so in some discussions, I may include a hint. So, hint, you may need to rewatch the video from yesterday for more support or more details or something like that. Or if I'm providing any scaffolding for students, if I do like a hint, I also italicize those. So I'm just differentiating the text on my page, so it's not just a bunch of 12-point font that, when you look at it on a computer, ends up almost blurring together and getting kind of jumbled up because it's just a lot of text. So even by changing the color or the size of text, you can break it up and add visual emphasis to things when you can't add visual emphasis online. You're not standing in front of the kids. They can't hear the inflection in your voice. They can't hear when you are putting emphasis on certain things or you're repeating things over and over. So I guess in a way you could think of like the size of the text as how often are you going to say it. If it's the prompt, you're going to say it a lot, so it needs to be large. If it's a hint text, if it's kind of support text, you're maybe only going to say it once or twice, so it can be kind of small. And again, we'll bring all this together when we go into Canvas, and I pull that up and show you. So that's text formatting. So again, that's just highlighting and clicking just like you would in a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. Highlight the text and use the toolbar. Fairly simple, but adds a lot of visuals for students. The other idea takes it a step up a little bit, and it's using icons and emojis. Now you can use these as a teacher or as a student. I kind of like to use the Noun Project as a teacher and use the emojis when my students are responding. So what I mean by this is the Noun Project is a site that has digital icons. So there's a sample here. So most of them are pretty simple. But what I like to use the Noun Project for is on my discussion page, I like to pull in icons that, again, add visual cues to students for the different parts of my directions. So maybe if in a discussion, instead of just asking them a question to respond to, I'm going to give them an article, or I'm going to give them an excerpt from a text, and I want them to read it. Well, maybe if I am doing step-by-step directions on the page, and number one is read, maybe I'm going to go find an icon from the Noun Project or an icon from an emoji site that's a picture of books or a book. And I'm going to put that emoji on the page and then say, read the following excerpt before answering the prompt below. So again, students have this icon that their eye is drawn to, and they visually see, okay, there's a book. And if I continue that theme throughout my course, anywhere I want students to read, I use that icon, then students are going to very quickly associate that icon with, okay, I'm getting ready to read something. And it's almost going to prep their brain for the task that they're getting ready to do. With emojis, what's kind of fun about these is your discussion prompts in Canvas don't have to be all like heavy hitting, very deep intellectual discussions. You can sprinkle in some fun ones because, again, the discussions are about responding to the content and building connections between you and the students. So you can have some fun ones in there, or you can ask students to respond to content in a fun way. So with this, what if you asked students to summarize what they just watched only using emojis? Students are going to have to get a little creative. And if you think about it, if I'm going to respond to something through emojis, first of all, I have to actually understand what I just watched. And then I have to actually figure out which emojis represent the summary or what I need to convey to others. So I'm actually putting more thought into this as a student than I might realize, because emojis are fun, right? And students use them all the time in texting or Snapchat or whatever, however they're communicating. So to them, it's kind of a fun thing, but yet I'm actually asking them to think a little more in order to translate words into emojis. You could also ask a simple discussion like, how are you feeling this week about the test? Are you ready for the test? Respond in an emoji. You know, they could give a thumbs up. They could give a little thinking one. They could give like a, oh gosh, like fearful one. As a teacher, I can quickly scan through all of those responses, visually look for the ones that are maybe concerned or worried. And now I can go and I can touch base with those individual students and say, hey, you know, like, why are you worried about this test? Or how can I help you? Or, you know, hone in on the students who are struggling a little bit more just by looking at a simple emoji response. The third suggestion is adding content. So I kind of touched on this in the last one. So on this one, I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to ask you guys to respond. So in Pear Deck, you see a little text box there. So what I mean by this is, instead of always doing just a text prompt question response, you can work in some of your content. So you could use, again, I am in the editing version of this discussion in Canvas. So once I click edit and I'm in editing mode, I've got this icon here that's a little picture. So I could insert a picture. I could insert a plot diagram. I could insert a map, a chart, a graph. I could insert a meme. I could insert a political cartoon. I can insert whatever image I want, and I can use that as the foundation for my prompt. I can use that to ask students to respond to it. So ask them to interpret the chart, ask them to predict, you know, if it's a plot diagram and it's half filled out, predict what's going to happen next based on what you see here. Same thing with the icon beside it. This is multimedia, so this would allow you to embed a video. So maybe I want to pull a little video clip in. Maybe at the very beginning of the module, I have my introduction page to the module. So here's what's coming, here's what you're going to do this week. Maybe right after that is a discussion, and maybe it is a video clip that previews the content. And I ask students to respond to that video preview and say, what do you think you're going to learn in this module? What do you think you're going to learn this week? What are you most excited to learn more about based on the video? So I have no, as a student, I have no context of what we're getting ready to learn. I haven't learned it yet, but I've gotten this little preview, and I have to think about, okay, what do I think is coming, or what am I excited about? So it kind of generates that interest for the week. You could also embed things using the little plug icon from your Google Drive. So this is really helpful if you have like an article or a graphic organizer or a slide presentation, something like that. I tend to use like PDF text for this one in discussions most often. So you could pull in an article or, again, a text excerpt. You could put your presentation that has your content in the discussion and ask students to reflect on it, or ask students to provide textual evidence for something, or, you know, whatever your prompt is, but you're giving them information, you're giving them context, you're giving them some material to work with. And it also helps to break it up. So we're responding to the content pretty frequently, and it's kind of all there on one page for students. So with that understanding and kind of with those ideas in your text box that you have on Pear Deck, what ideas were kind of triggered as I was talking? Like, did you think of a certain image that you might want to use, or how you could use a video, or how you could use an article? I just want you guys to kind of brainstorm how you might be able to use embedding in discussions to make a better discussion. And hopefully, and the reason I want you to share is hopefully we can look at others and you'll walk away with not only your idea, but the ideas that everybody else in here had as well. And I'm trying to practice my wait time.
Stephanie had to leave, so.
Oh, okay. Thanks. It's hard to see. Well, it's impossible to see when I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, embedded articles and links, maps and charts. Yeah, so anything you can add in, any visuals, just students tend to enjoy looking at visuals more than just text. You could probably, I hadn't thought about this. If you wanted to get fancy, you could probably even use like Canva or Adobe Spark or even Google Drawings, and you could do like your prompt in a more fun, like graphic. You know how there's like inspirational quote images? You could almost create your prompt in like a more fun visual way. So I think this is the last suggestion, and then we'll go into Canvas. I think I'm okay on time. So just support discussions. So part of what is going to make your Canvas course, your digital learning environment more successful is to make it more supportive. So you can do this with discussions. And I have two suggestions for this. One is a help desk or like an FAQ discussion. So what I would do with this is I would create a Canvas discussion that's just called help desk. Or maybe I'd break it up and one's going to be called technology help desk and one is going to be called content or subject help desk or whatever. And I would link those on your homepage, or I would have that discussion, that same discussion at the beginning of every module. And it's going to be a semester long or year long discussion where students can post questions that they need answered. So instead of emailing me, the teacher, every time a student has a question, I'm going to encourage students to post it to the help desk where they can help each other and where I can respond and answer one student's question. But when these three other students have the exact same question at some point in the year, they now immediately have an answer. They don't have to email me and wait for me to respond. They can go check it right away. The key with this, and I'll show you when we go into Canvas, is there is an option when you're doing discussions in Canvas to allow students to view other responses before they post their own. If you're doing a help desk, you want students to be able to see everybody else's responses, even if they have not responded themselves. Otherwise, I might post the same question that's already been posted, but I don't know because I can't see them. So you need to let every student see responses, even if they haven't posted their own response. So that's one idea for a help desk, or like I said, a FAQ, frequently asked question discussion that you just reuse throughout the course. And it's just kind of a one-stop shop, like parking lot and general question type thing. You could also reuse posts. So in Canvas, when you create a discussion post, you go to a module to add a discussion, and most of the time you're probably going to click new discussion. You're going to create that new discussion page, edit it, and then that's going to live in module 1. You can actually, when you go to module 2, or even within module 1, you can add a discussion, and instead of creating a new one, you can choose one that's already been created and already been used. So what's cool about this is you could do kind of a KWL type discussion. So at the beginning of the module, like I said, maybe you post like a little video preview of your content and you ask students, hey, what do you want to know in this unit? And they respond. Then you circle back towards the end of the module, the end of the week, and you bring that same discussion in again later in the module. And you ask students, hey, go in and answer each other's questions. Can you answer what students wanted to know at the beginning? Not only are students able to see, oh, hey, I wanted to know this, and yes, I learned this, but as the teacher, you can go in and you can see, here are all the questions my students wanted to know. Okay, here are the 5 that no student has responded to. Maybe it's because they don't know the answer. And if they don't know the answer, is any of it something that I really need them to know? Do I need to reteach that? Do I need to make sure they know that information? Or do I just want to respond and give them the answer because it was just kind of like an extra enrichment type thing. And I'll show you how to reuse the post in just a second. I know this one was an interactive activity, but for the sake of time, I'm going to continue on. And I think, yep, so the next one is artifact submission. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my own Canvas course, and I'm going to show you what some of these things look like in the Canvas environment. So what I'm going to ask you to do is you can either close the Pear Deck tab, actually at this point you won't need it again, or just click over into the Google Meet tab. And I'm going to give you a second. You should be seeing my Canvas course right now though, or my Sandbox course.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so let's look at some of these discussions. So here is a discussion. I can tell by the little icon here, the little speech bubbles. So this one has already been created. So I'm going to click onto it. And again, it's giving me a preview mode here of what it would look like for my students. And what you can see in here is I've added a little graphic that just indicates this is a practice it. So following the learn it, practice it, evidence of it, or prove it kind of sequence of learning. So we're practicing something that we've learned here. I've got my directions. So again, my standard, my personal standard is red italics is always any directions. So I'm telling students, you're going to read the article and then you're going to respond. So that's your task. I've added the content here. So you can see I've embedded, this particular one is just an article. And then underneath, I've kind of broken up. You can see some of these visuals here that, again, it's just simple text formatting. So I've included the discussion question right here at the top. And you can kind of tell it is larger text than the rest of it, but honestly, it doesn't stand out a whole lot. So I might go in and make that a little larger. But you can see I've bolded the verb. So they are going to imagine. So right away, students know, okay, I'm going to have to imagine, I'm going to have to like create something in my mind. How ancient Egyptian culture and government would have been different if the people did not practice polytheism. So again, bold, because that's a vocabulary term that we've covered in our ancient Egyptian unit. So I'm drawing their attention to, hey, this is a new word that we learned. You may not be really familiar with it, so I want to point it out to you. I've told students here what their response should include. I've given them a checklist. I would say when you first start using discussions, keep it pretty simple, knowing that you're going to build on that you're going to push students to deeper discussion as the year goes on. So maybe if this was a discussion I was doing at the beginning or one of the first times I use a discussion, maybe I'm just going to include these first two checkboxes here, these first two items. Your response needs to start with based on the article, and your response needs to include the term polytheism. Down the road, if we've done a bunch of discussions, I'm going to start adding on some expectations here. I'm reminding students too that you should have 2 replies, and notice I bolded 2, just to remind them, hey, you have to reply twice. You have to reply to 2 other students to keep that conversation going. And your replies need to start with one of the following. You can pick one, so students have the choice. They can choose how they want to reply, and they can choose who they want to reply to. I've just narrowed their focus for them a little bit and given them some sentence stems so that their reply isn't just, good point, I like what you said. So I'm going to come back up and I am going to go into edit mode here, just to hit some of these highlights. So here is my text editing box. So I'm going to scroll down because, like I said, I wanted to make this discussion prompt a little larger. So I'm going to highlight, and again, this is how you're going to format the text anywhere in Canvas. But I'm going to highlight this, and again, instead of heading 4, I'm going to make this heading 3. And that, again, is a little bit larger, so it's going to draw their attention to, like I said, the meat of this discussion, the question. Here is the insert image option. Here is the insert video option. And the little plug is how you would insert Google files from your drive. You can also insert YouTube videos from here as well. You would just, you would kind of want to know the title of the YouTube video so it's easier to search for. Another thing you could do is you could insert a table, and you could provide 3 related questions, and you could label each question with, if your birthday is January through March, answer this question. So they're all related questions, but it's going to allow me to hopefully get a variety of responses. Or ask the same question and divide students up and say your answer should start with, you know, A through, or January through March, or A through F last name. Your response should start with this sentence stem. You know, G through whatever R, yours should start with this. So again, it's just getting students to have a variety of responses. And you're just instructing them, you know, find your name or find your birthday or find, you know, whatever. And here's kind of your guiding sentence stem. So I'm going to scroll down on this page below the text editing box. This is where those options are. I would always, always, always allow threaded replies. What that means is it's going to group together replies with the what they are replying to. So it's going to be kind of like an email string. If you don't check that, it's going to be one long stream of every post, whether it was the first response or a reply to a response. And what that means is unless the student, when they replies, says, Joe, you said blank, and then puts their response, no one's going to know what reply that goes to, who that student is referencing. So always, always, always check threaded replies. And then this is the one where I was talking about users must post before seeing replies. I would pretty much always turn that on because it's going to give you a more authentic answer from students. However, you may have times, like with the help desk, where you want students to see other replies before they post. So just be aware that that is there. If I turn on graded discussion, it's going to make that discussion, it's going to put it in the grade book, and it's going to allow me to give students a grade for the discussion. It's going to allow me to use the speed grader. And this is where you can, if I turn on graded here, then I can come down and give points, assignment groups, and I can create a rubric. Group discussion is pretty cool, so I do want to point this one out. Now, I will say if you've never used discussions in Canvas, don't start out with this one. It's not going to mess anything up, but this is one that is going to be better when both you and your students become more familiar with discussions. But I do just want to put it on your radar because it is pretty cool, and it allows you to get even more creative with discussions. So basically what a group discussion will do, if I turn this on to make it a group discussion, I can choose, and this one students have already submitted, so I can't actually turn it into a group discussion, but it's going to allow me to choose a group category or start a new one. So by category, it means like the title of your groups. So partner pairs, or groups of 3, or A day, B day. So it's going to allow me to set up kind of the general overview of groups, and then put students into these kind of, they're going to branch out from this one discussion, and they will only be able to see and reply to students in their group. So that's kind of cool, because as a teacher, you'll be able to go into every group and see all the responses, but students are going to be broken down into smaller groups, which may give them a little more courage to reply to each other, because the whole class isn't seeing their response now. It's just the people in their group. And that's where you can really get creative and do like some jigsaw activities. You could do a group discussion in Canvas, and then when students come into your classroom physically, you can continue that, you know, okay, you've all discussed this in your groups. Now let's have a whole class discussion. So groups are pretty cool. I'm going to save this, and it'll take me back to preview mode. And I'm going to go back to my modules page to show you how to reuse the same discussion again. So for example, that one I was just in was called Practice It Egyptian Culture. So what I can do is I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to scroll down to this module down here. So I'm going to click the plus button to add something to this module. I'm going to use the drop down to choose discussion. And instead of creating a new topic, instead of creating a new discussion, I am going to find Practice It Egyptian Culture. And I'm going to add that item. And now you see that discussion, if I click on it, it's the exact same one with all responses, is now a second place in my course. It's in a new module. So here it is here. Now, because that discussion was published in module 1, it's automatically going to come in as published in this module. In essence, what I'm doing is I'm basically creating a shortcut, I guess, to that same discussion. So if I unpublish this one, it's going to unpublish it for the one in module 1. It is the exact same discussion. It's just appearing twice. So just keep that in mind.
If you were to delete the first one, would the second one remain?
Yes. So what happens is, and this is the same on pages, assignments, anything within a module, the 3-dot menu, if I click remove, what that means is it means remove it from the module, not delete it from the course. So it will remove this one from this module, but here it is. It's still going to be, no, that's not it. Here it is. Practice It Egyptian Culture. It's still going to be up here because I haven't removed it from this module. I just removed it from the other. Good question. If I removed it from this module too, I can always come over here to discussions, which I can see as a teacher, even though students can't, and I'd be able to see it there. So it doesn't actually remove it from your Canvas course. It just, the only thing that the 3-dot menu remove does is it just removes it from the module itself, but it's still there in the course. You would just have to choose to add it back to a module if you wanted students to see it. So, okay, I am going to pull up your artifact. I'll explain that. And then if you have any other questions, then I'll stay on for a couple minutes and answer them.